Evening everyone, or good morning or good afternoon whenever you watch this. By now you should know my name. If you don't, get to know. And also do the like, comment and share if you see this and you're getting value from the content. As promised, I did promise to go live yesterday and I decided, you know what, I'm going to give myself an extra day's rest. I have given myself permission to slow down, relax a bit more, not have any plans, and it was brilliant. So I thought, no harm done, I can do it another day. So here I am. I hope you are well and looking forward to this season. We're going into winter now. Winter solstice is coming up. Sorry, I'm just gonna turn that off. Sorry, I'm back. I'm just going to turn that off because I realised I had something going on in the background. Some ads was coming on. I'm not supporting that. No. Anyway, here we are. I promised the live on how to have your own back. The reason being, we are definitely living in a world where audacity is something else. Audacity, in other words. I'm really seeing a big shift where people are beginning to notice how much people not aware, not recognising their impact on others, are doing so in neglectful, in my view, neglectful ways that are actually causing harm, not recognising there are issues, a sense of entitlement, expectations, doing to others that they wouldn't necessarily like having done to themselves. The list goes on. So I would say audacity is a big key element of what I'm going to discuss. I'm not going to go into the negative side. I'm just going to give you some insight into what could be showing up, some possible symptoms for you to go away and have a think about if that's right and true for you, and start to unpack for yourself and maybe go along with some of the suggestions that I've made, some of which I'm going to share again on repeat, rinse and repeat, because repetition is key, certainly in learning, that you can take away practical steps or tools that you can get in and take action in the here and now, the present, because all there is the here and now. We're not worried about the future, we're not lamenting the past, we're not stuck in rumination, we're not getting a sense of powerlessness. We're trying to take back our power, claim back our power, claim back our resources, time, energy, attention. Financial empowerment is certainly a key element of that, and recognising we do deserve, we are worthy, we are enough, just as we are. So, Henry Ford, he said, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. I'm going to say again, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got. And that's the invitation to make changes. I sometimes think people expect other people to change. It's not going to happen. It is possible for them if they decide they want to do it, and that's a choice. Free will being a key component of that. However, when you focus on what you can control, and this is the stuff I talk about on this channel and in my videos, you focus on the inward stuff, your inward experience, and control that a little bit more with awareness, reflection, working on those habits that are able to sustain you, so you're not building yourself on quicksand. So whenever you're trying to make progress, you're trying to thrive, you're trying to go for your goals, you're trying to be intentional about the way you spend your time, energy, attention, resources, you're not doing it from a place where quickly things go wrong, you come up against, bump up against challenge or conflict, things outside of you that you can't control. They tend to get you into a place where you can't recover, or you're already in a state of chaos. So again, the invitation to look at what is right and true for you, your internal chaos. We're not talking about anybody else's. We know there's a lot of chaos in the world. We're seeing the evidence of that. But if you're controlling yourself and you're controlling better your perspective and where you're focusing, protecting your energy, all those elements, you will start to experience or see things differently, so that you experience better things, get better outcomes, get better results. So that's that invitation. And also the definition of madness is doing the same thing, expecting the same result. That was me, and I still couldn't figure out why I was having certain cycles, certain patterns that I didn't want, undesirable, causing me pain, and why they were happening on repeat, different faces, different places, environments that weren't nurturing me, wasn't supporting me, and I was still participating. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's acknowledging that the key thing is you. You are the common denominator. I can't stress that enough. So when you find yourself in toxic relationships, self-sabotage, I've spoken about this a lot in previous lives. I've gone into deep dives, I've given steps. Self-sabotage has been, I've done so much self-sabotage over the years, but I wasn't necessarily conscious to it, and that's why I focus and talk a lot more about the inward experience, the inner game versus the outer game, that allows you to see the ways you could be letting yourself down when you're attempting to thrive instead of survive. They both have a very different outcome, different results. And the former, as in the self-sabotage, will do harm to self and others. And this is where the audacity can come in, because there are individuals, perhaps groups out there that don't necessarily recognise or can connect the dots to their ways of thinking, their ways of being, their habits, their behaviours that have impact on others. So what seems normal to them, because it's familiar, it's comfortable, is actually not normal and needs to be challenged. It needs to be handled in a way, perhaps with grace, especially when we're dealing with others, that we make a decision whether we continue to participate or we detach, we let go with love. And it's always leaving people better than we found them and taking our power back along with it. So I've said a lot there, how to have your own back, Carol. I've written some notes, I always do, because there's so much to cover, but I'm also trying to be more succinct, because I do know I can go off on a tangent, and I like to give value where I can. And it's recognising the world you live in. For me, a lot of the work I did was recognising how overstimulated I was. What do you mean by that? We're in an information age. We're being bombarded with information which is not necessarily being converted to knowledge and not necessarily using critical thinking and discernment to act on that information, to embody it, to practice it, that allows us to recognise what is true, what is right, not the absorption, the beliefs or perspectives that actually limit us like fleas in a jar. I don't know if you've ever heard that story, fleas in a jar, where you'll only jump as high as the lid, but it's recognising, if you want to thrive, that you're limitless. Yes, I agree, you can overestimate where you are, but with time, energy and attention directed in the right places, you can start to cultivate those habits, those healthier behaviours that enable you to get to where you want, and therefore push past the limits that maybe been placed on you by yourself because of what you've believed, what's been conditioned, programmed into you, or what others told you is available to you. So I hope that makes sense. So again, the information overload for me, when I realised I was being overstimulated, was to pull back where my attention was going, because I was being distracted and I was doing busy things, and I also had a habit of experiencing the shiny object syndrome, which means anything that captured my information I'd latch onto, not recognising actually I was getting into a pattern of starting things, not necessarily completing them. I was good at that, but I somehow unlearned that it was important to focus my attention and to complete tasks, complete exercises, complete projects, and not allow myself to be distracted because my monkey mind or my mind chatter is misdirecting me and getting me to expend where it didn't need to be, and also to recognise when to pull back when it's not mine to do. So again, this is how you have your own back, controlling of self, not others. Let that go. It doesn't work. To recognise the signs when you're trying to control others, which can be manipulative in nature, when you're trying to get something from somebody without the balance, without the reciprocation, without the equanimity, understanding it's win-win, not the zero-sum game that some play in relationships, which is why I've also do quite a number of stories around content creators that are proficient in that area, and it's through my own experiences on getting there. It's something I get to work on, but raising relational things that are important to recognise in how to have your own back is really understanding who's in your circle, who is pouring into you as well as you're pouring into them in equal measure. It's balance, and you're not putting yourself in positions where you're over-giving, under-receiving, or you're just experiencing the take, because that is where we get anger, resentments, and when they build up, they get in the way. And this is game for you of gratitude, because all of a sudden you will start to have a thinking pattern. If you're not already aware of it, I will give you the invitation to journal around what anger and resentments mean to you, because you can then begin to see for yourself, when you really tap into what is my judgments of others. Why am I feeling the need to be obligated to do certain things, which is probably not mine to do? it is consistent and it's expected of me, and at no point I do not challenge that. However, I'm feeling depleted energetically, emotionally and mentally because I'm not doing more of what I enjoy, and I'm doing things to please others with the expectation that I will get a return. However, that is not necessarily the experience. I'm feeling the drain, I'm feeling exhausted, and you will then, I promise you, if you're not picking up on it, the anger, resentments start to build an unhealthy picture of that person because you're not actually communicating what your needs are, what your requirements are, and leave it up to them to either meet you there or not, which you get to decide whether it's a relationship you can continue to participate in, it's a relationship you can continue to pour into. Because a lot of what I'm seeing is there's unbalanced relationships. I know that was true for me, and there's some work which I've done where it ended up being a decision to stop participating or withdraw to a degree to observe more what was coming up for me, so that I address the changes that I need to make. Because again, it's not about changing others, controlling others, and certainly not manipulating them to get your needs met at their expense. It works the same way as for you as well, recognising that not everybody can meet your needs. Not all needs are healthy to be met by others. Some needs to be sourced by yourself, which is why it's important you have your own bag, be your own cheerleader, prioritise your needs, practice self-care, self-love, because these are the elements of recognising I'm important too, I have needs, I am worthy, I deserve certain things, but it's not for me to expect that from other people if they can't do it, they can't meet me there, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the bandwidth. You have a choice. So I've gone off there, and these are the areas where we can get distracted by others, and usually I would argue, and I know a lot of I would suggest, sorry, not argue, that if you're constantly distracted, and this is something I had to learn myself, because I told you earlier about the shiny object syndrome, I'll be on to the next thing, and it took me off of what I was already doing. So I had split attention. I mean, multitasking is a good skill, but also recognise it's splitting your focus. So it's harder to get any one thing done, get to master any one skill, to prioritise what needs to be prioritised. If you've got too many balls in the air, eventually they fall. So it's recognising that if you're being distracted, sometimes we're distracting ourselves through self-sabotage because we're avoiding something. That's something to be aware of. We're numbing ourselves, and numbing can look different depending on the person. I know mine was alcohol, substances, and busy work. Sometimes I was going into overload with over-giving at work, doing too much, because it was a way of escaping what was difficult emotionally, what was hard for me, even emotions that I didn't necessarily recognise, and I wasn't sitting with the negative aspects of emotion as value to give me, to recognise that something needed to change in me, and to stop expecting, projecting or deflecting to others that responsibility when really that is my own. So, and I'm going into a bit about the suppression of emotions, denying that they're there. And this links back to anger and resentment. And I again invite you as a tip to put a piece of paper, write down your understanding of anger and resentments, and perhaps spend 5 minutes or so writing out what's there, because the chances are you're going to experience something visceral inside the body, some sort of tension, which will be very telling. Very telling as to an indicator of something there that's ready to be healed, ready to be released, the emotional charge around it, depending on what comes up for you. And I would also suggest working with a therapist, a counsellor or a coach like myself, to see what needs to be expressed in a healthy space to enable you to unpack and then review what needs to be clear or cleared up, so that you start to repair, start to recognise what needs to be healed within you, to enable you to get out of certain ways of being, certain habits, certain behaviours, unhealthy copes. I mentioned a few. Shopping is another one. I know that was true of me, where you're not dealing with what needs to be dealt with because there's a fear there. There's deep rooted emotions which have a root cause, and this will show up in feeling sad, feelings of loneliness, fear, grief. I said about the anger and resentments. What tends to happen is we fill the void, and again, if we're expecting others to give us what we need there, then I'm afraid we're going to be let down in that respect, because it's not their work to do. It's yours, your responsibility, your accountability. It's an opportunity for you to be accountable and to work with what's coming up for you, so that you can start to work on the ways you show up in challenge, which will have you dysregulated. What do you mean, Karen? Dysregulated is either is your nervous system. So the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic being the rest and digest. So it's actively and consciously working on ways to relax, to breathe deeply in the body, to regulate as best you can your moods, tapping into natural happiness chemicals, which are endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and they all have different attributes and will add to your wholeness. When you're dysregulated, say for example you have ongoing stresses on your life, so it's important to review what those are. If you've got stresses, they will cause stress, cortisol or adrenaline in the body. If not regulated, proper regulated with practice, you will show up in ways where you're dysregulated. You go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Fawn being the modern day people pleasing. So you end up exhibiting certain behaviours or doing things or being caught in patterns. Like I said earlier, cycles of toxic relationships, self-sabotage, people pleasing, so you're not paying attention, and you could be participating, or you are not showing your part in the thing that is causing you pain, which is causing you suffering, because it is natural and normal for us as in our humanness to seek pleasure, stay away from pain, which is why numbing is a key thing. We tend to seek pleasure, but in actual fact, when you suppress emotions, reality is you suppress them all. So it's not possible for you to experience true happiness, joy, pleasure, fulfillment, because you're actually denying what's considered negative emotions, which are telling you, are warning signs, are lights to say, okay, something needs to change here, and to unpack and work with a professional, or to do some types of training to enable you to release the charge, release the process, the unprocessed emotions, because the body keeps the score. So again, indicators to look out for is feelings of overwhelmed, underappreciated, exhausted, drained, you're confused, you're not clear on what needs to happen, when it needs to happen. You panic, you might even be depressed, you're not looking forward to anything, and that's also an indication of ruminating about the past, regrets, fear-based, grieving what could have been, what ifs, all stuff that are deeper indicators of something, or something that happened, that some kind of trauma that needs to be looked at in a healthier way, to enable you to let go of it, to surrender to what is, and is to prevent it from distorting your reality, limiting you, making your life difficult, because you're reacting from your past, which is difficult to catch, not impossible. I want to make that clear, it's not impossible, I'm proof of that, and I know there's so many people that I've worked with, as well as learned from, that have really come through some seemingly unsurmountable times of challenge in their past to enable them to have a brighter future, to thrive. So I hope I give you something more positive there, because I know the subject matter is deep, but I think it's important to recognise why you need to have your own back, because it's you that's responsible for your own happiness, your own wellness, your own mindset, to enable you to bring forth, create from the place of regulation. So an indicator also, because I'm giving you a lot of information, I invite you to take notes, and also to get in touch if there's anything that's not clear or doesn't make sense, to notice your impulsivity and reactivity. I'll say again, your impulsivity and your reactivity, because again, those are indicators of moments where you could be dysregulated. It happens to all the best of us. We can lose our shit, sometimes at ourselves or others, and it's important to recognise when those moments come up, what to do about them. And not everybody's a fan of it, but I think the quickest way to access is to breathe, just get some breath in. If that's not available to you, just stop whatever you're doing. Prioritise being with whatever's coming up, and if that means excusing yourself from a situation of conflict, recognising it's not the time, you're not in the best place, then give yourself that grace. Give yourself that grace to step away, have a moment where you're just with yourself. It might be helpful to go out for a walk, go out without your phone, take time out, really centre the basic, using the 5 senses: see, hear, touch, feel. I'm trying to think, taste, but not necessarily taste, but using the senses to return you back to the present, so that you're then responding from a hopefully centered and grounded place rather than the chaotic place, because you can only handle your chaos. Navigating somebody else's can be challenging, but you can't do it if you're dysregulated yourself. So it's really important to take time out, and it might even be sitting in a room, acknowledging what's coming up for you. Don't beat yourself up, don't judge yourself. It's in the past. How we repair, how we clean it up is what's important, because that is available to you. So how you have your own back. Basically, slow down, have moments of stillness, savor moments, really be present, be intentional, always bring intention to every interaction you have, because that's how you start to identify what is serving you, what isn't, letting that go. Experience the beauty of life. This is mindfulness-based practice. Work with relaxing more. This is something I've done a lot more this year, despite my schedule, because I was managing quite a number of things, and that was okay. So instead of always doing, I recognised I needed to be more. And to be more is to be in stillness, to experience quiet, to experience more peace, to centre myself, centre my needs, prioritise my needs, honour my bandwidth and capacity. Like I did yesterday, I decided I wasn't going to do the live, and that was okay. I was going to give myself some more rest time, because I'm going to be with family soon. I'm going to experience, I want to be present. I don't want to be overly tired, because I'm always doing. Today I did a lot of cleaning, because I find that's very helpful in decluttering my mind as well as my physical space. That's really important. Practice for you to do ongoing, to really learn the correlation between cluttering the mind and physical clutter, because what's going on inside of you manifests outside of you. So if there are things that are not pleasing, not desirable, your outcomes and results are reflective of you not getting what you want, or understanding why you're not getting what you want, so that you can start to shift and change what needs to be changed, you will embrace more the importance of relaxation, rest, recovery, the healing work, because it's not linear, it's not a straight line, it's actually more circular, and sometimes it's messy, it's all right, it will go all over the place. There'll be times when you're winning, and there'll be times when you haven't got it for yourself, let alone anybody else. So when you have your own back, you honour your bandwidth, you honour your capacity, you uphold your boundaries, recognising they're not walls. Because if they're walls, people that matter, the people that love you, the people that understand equanimity, balance, reciprocation in relationships can hold space for you. They're not there to rescue you, they're there to hold space for you. You will recognise the beauty of, oh, okay, I haven't got it, and it's okay, and this is a conversation that takes place. I'm meeting my own needs. Others can help meet me if I'm better able to communicate what they are, and that might be, I haven't got time for that. That's not something of interest to me, and to do so with grace, or just to say no, or to say even. However, if I do this, can we agree that this is the return? Sounds transactional. However, maybe investigate for yourself whether there are relationships that you have that are transactional, and that's okay, and the relationships where you need more, you need the emotional depth, you need the holding space, you need the mental capacity not to dump on, to recognise you have needs and to meet each other, to a willingness to compromise, a willingness to hold space for the parts of us that we find challenging, the shadow stuff, the ways we show up that are not always healthy, not always conducive to relationships. So understanding you can get it wrong, do the repair work, do the recovery, and let go what needs to be let go of. So, I think I'm getting towards the end of this live. So I mentioned a number of things, how to have your own back. And I'm also going to say, take what resonates, let go of the rest. Not everything I'm going to say is going to hit it for you, that's okay. If there's anything, if there's a nugget or there's something, make a note, make a mental note. Decide that that's going to be the thing you're going to work on. Just make one small change, and it will lead to other changes. And recognise from what I suggest what's right and true for you, taking judgment out of the occasion, and have a practice of compassion and empathy, because it's also possible, because of what I mentioned earlier, we are distracted. I'm seeing a lot of numbing out, mentally checking out, abuses, suppressing stuff that needs to be worked or released, to work through, feel it to heal it, name it to tame it. We're overstimulated. These are all indicative of ways where we can suffer with compassion fatigue. So that's when we start to lose our humanity. We start to lose our sight of we're all human beings, and it's not for us to use people. We use things, we don't use people. So when we've got fatigue, compassionate fatigue, we can lose sight of doing what's in the best interest of self, others, and our communities. So again, if you're getting a sense of there's all these things, you're unclear, as a starting point, you can work with me one-on-one. I do wellness plans which will show up if there's fatigue setting for you and what things you can do that are very actionable and practical that you can do to get your wellness on track. Because as I said, the body keeps the score, and if you don't deal with the disease, it will manifest itself in your body, which is why one of the things I lent into this year is relaxation. It was counterintuitive to the way I was always busy, always doing, because I recognised eventually that I was doing too much, over-giving, under-receiving, which was causing anger and resentment. I wasn't really focused on myself. I wasn't prioritising my needs. I wasn't giving myself permission to rest, and I wasn't also giving myself, I wasn't doing more of the no, doing things, continue to do things, participate in groups and environments that weren't nurturing or nourishing, where I was experiencing people where it was we clearly weren't aligned, and to let it go, especially if I was in environments where I didn't feel appreciated or even liked. Again, you need to really work on, do I like this person? I think we've been trained, conditioned into being likeable, in a way of getting our needs met, and sometimes it's the case, do I like this person? Is this a person that I can develop a meaningful relationship? Because as I said, you can have relationships which are based on equanimity, reciprocation, balance, understanding of needs, healthy communication, willingness to address conflict. But there's some relationships which show up as very transactional. You do this for me and I give you this, but however they're not balanced. And some of the conflict I experienced this year was very much that, transactional, and those were the relationships I was okay with disinvesting, letting go of, new chapter, move on, and getting ninja-like. And this is how you have your own back relation, because once you free up your time, which is the only resource that cannot be replaced, I promise you, you will start, especially with some inner work, you'll start to attract people that do get it, that do understand what is normal, have a healthier idea of what normal, exhibit the behaviours that recognise that they don't just take, they don't just expect, they don't make you, they don't oblige, they don't manipulate you, they don't emotionally abuse you, withhold, don't clap when you're doing well, do not support you when you need it. When you recognise that there's individuals that do it, and it's not forced, it flows. I promise you, your life changes for the better, because you're giving from an overflow. You're not drained, you're not exhausted, you're not angry, you're not resentment. You're working on those, you're healing those, you're doing the forgiveness work, forgiveness of self, and then extend that to others. You regain compassion, you regain your humanity. You also operate more morally. You understand you're not here just to suck everything. You're not here to take. You understand that there are ways you can support, and they can be meaningful. They don't need to be the big things. They're often the smaller things, and you don't project because you don't like that person. If you don't like that person, why are you still around them? Why are you still, I find it begs I don't get people sometimes And then they wonder why you don't want to interact with them when it's clear they don't like you. They're clear that they don't give you anything. If anything, they make these comments, which I always find interesting. It gives me an indication of where they're at. And I'm like, okay, then you recognise there's some people that are best left alone. You leave them better than where you found them. You move on and you love them from afar, if at all. So, right, so that's that one. So, some tips. Slow down. What do you mean? Slow down. Create more white space around entries in your diary. If you maintain a diary, I suggest you do so. Don't have everything jam-packed. Have some downtime, really important, but downtown, not in downtown as in recovering from stuff, recovering from overstimulation. So if you've got a social engagement, maybe have a few days where it's just you or you and your partner or your family, you're just doing those things for them, and you're comfortable where there is agreement what will be done, what won't be done, and there's flexibility in that cadence. You're able to relax. You're not expected to do anything. Maybe treat to ordering takeout. So it's not expected the partner cooks for you. Maybe order takeaway, or maybe just have overs and it's simple and everybody takes care of themselves. There's no expectation. Protect your energy. Protect your energy very carefully, who you're giving it to, where you're flowing to. Also, really take note of what you're mentally taking in. This has been a big piece for me. It meant that as I recognise some content I was absorbing, was observing, rather than observing, I absorbed if it was something that I worked and aligned with my values and my beliefs about myself and the person I'm becoming. I realised that there were certain things that weren't healthy, and I think mainly gossip channels. I'm not really into television, I'm not really into news, I don't really see it serving me. So really create your circle, the people that are close to you. These are ways of protect your energy, really noticing the till end. Are they energizing you, or are they draining you? Because if they're draining you, there's an indicator that something needs to change there, and do not expect that person to change. You take ownership of that. Prioritising your needs and doing things that you enjoy. Really do things that are fun. Do no harm to self or others. And spend at least 15 minutes doing that every day. Even if it's dancing in your kitchen, listening to a piece of music, reading, maybe starting a new hobby, learning a new language, very good for mental, I'm trying to think, the mental capacity, that's come out wrong, but learn to lean into things that will boost your happiness chemicals. I mentioned that earlier: endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. Dopamine, do watch that, because dopamine is what has a lot of society addicted to scrolling, social media in terms of content. Really keep an eye, and there are stats on, I know there's stats on Apple because I look at mine, and I've actively reduced the amount of time I worked on, I'm on social media, because I noticed a correlation with my mental health, and it proved dramatically. Also, who I follow, what content, that is another piece, what content I take in, what I watch, because something I've not really spoken about because I haven't got time to today is understanding the subconscious, and a way of, it's what we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. Hypnotism is a place I can help with that, and I know there's others that do that. Hypnotism to work on those root causes that we're not necessarily present to because they're still to surface, and it's a lot to do with conditioning, programming, societal expectations, conditioning, programming. So this is the unlearning work, which I invite you as a means of how having your own back, so you better spot the beliefs and narratives of other people that has their perspective but are not necessarily ones that you want to take on board, because I'll give you the analogy, the crabs in the bucket. If you have in your circle individuals that don't necessarily hold the same values as you, they're not particularly intentional, or they have some conflicts going on, not necessarily healthy copes, they can pull you down and this is like foundations which are not sustainable, they're shaky, like quicksand. So really see what is right and true for you there. And to let go and to forgive, practice forgiveness. There's ways you can do this. Ho'oponopono, I pronounced that wrong. Ho'oponopono, it's the Hawaiian prayer. It's like, I'm trying to remember. Sorry, my mind just went blank. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I find that is a very good practice to do if you're bumping up something that you've uncovered for yourself with anger and resentments. There's a YouTube, you'll be able to find the Ho'oponopono prayer, the Hawaiian prayer. It was proven to be very successful in helping prisoners to deal with what got them into their situation. It does have an impact. Look into it. I'm trying to remember the doctor that came up with it, but it's something I practice regularly. So again, I'm not leaving you with anything that's not actionable, not practical. You can go away and practice. Small promises to yourself, I'm going to leave there. Make small promises to yourself. And that might look like giving yourself 15 minutes to rest, not to do anything, and time yourself. I've got this. This is my 2-minute gauge. And this is my 15 minutes gauge. Sometimes I just do that and I just let it be okay. I don't need alarm on my phone, it's very nice. And if I need a bit longer, I take it. So that's it. And this will be the last video of this year, depending on how I'm feeling. But I'm going to say, if I show up again, I'll let you know. If I don't, I don't. Merry Christmas, season tidings. And I'll see you in the new year. Take care.